Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Today is Thursday, October 28th, 2021. I am Solid Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. Hello, Frozen Pizza fan. You are the first one. Okay, I'm going to get started today, and we will let everyone else trickle in. But let me see one thing. Hold on one second for me. Okay, so um, welcome Crucible Man and welcome Frankie. Okay, I'm sorry I got distracted there a moment. Today I want to talk about school curriculum. Are children smart enough to handle the truth? Do adults need to give children more credit with what they learn? Should real world events dictate what is learned in school? Should every person's history be learned so every side, culture, and person is relevant? Should history be deleted or whitewashed to fit a particular narrative? Okay, and I said on here lots of shoulds to discuss. All right, so welcome Petty Deb and welcome Prophet Asante. So, there's a lot, in the news lately, going on in terms of what should be taught in schools and what should not be taught in schools. We have that term critical race theory that some people, don't like. I personally don't like the term, but I do believe that every person's history should be taught. And I think that the history of America has been one sided. Um, I think that, yeah, people may say, well, I learned about slavery in school. I learned about Native Americans. I learned about Asians, whatever. But it's little touches here or there, whatever. But in terms of, going in depth in terms of what is actually learned um, and what has happened in this country, no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about it. If you look at America, America was founded on violence. It wasn't with the Native Americans and, they all had, Thanksgiving together and they all broke bread. It wasn't like that, and before the Mayflower, probably at least 100 years before, I think it was like 1502, when Europeans came over to America, um, they were actually fighting and killing Native Americans. Welcome, OJ28. Welcome. So when you look at America and the colonization that has gone on, it's been done in violence. You know, um, and when you talk about it, some people, they want to say, well, let's look forward. The past is the past, but for some of us, um, and this is just me, this is my opinion, everything that I'm saying is my opinion. People may agree with me, they may disagree with me, but people who look like me, people who are brown, when you say don't look at the past or forget about the past, look forward, you're telling me to forget about my history, you're telling me to forget about my ancestors. You're telling me that I should not, you know um remember who came before me. So when children are in school, I think that adults don't give children enough credit. Nowadays, you have these school board meetings where people, they have an agenda, and they go to these school board meetings with an agenda where they're disruptive. You know, someone told me a couple of days ago that that in terms of wearing masks and what have you, you don't want an authoritarian. I'm saying that word wrong. An authoritarian, you know, country. No, we don't. But yet they're banning books. You're banning books, from Toni Morrison. A very good book called Beloved. And they're not just banning that book. They're banning books. There are books that they're saying should not be in school. So when you talk about being authoritarian, it goes both ways. So I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. I grew up and went to a school, in elementary school, that was all white. I was the third, um, at that time, Negro child to integrate that school. And when I went to high school, the school was predominantly white. Then it became like half and half. But whenever things were brought up in class, it was whitewashed. Oh, no, no. Well, we don't need to talk about that now. Well, why not? Why can't we talk about it? Instead, I'm supposed to hear about George Washington being the quote unquote father of this country. The father of the country should, be Native Americans who were here first. So children can learn about this. No one's trying to make anyone feel guilty or anything. It's just about a fact about learning the history of America. And there's a lot to learn. And I especially go with Native Americans. Let's talk about them first. Let's talk about Columbus. How Columbus came and, Queen Isabella told him to come over here and, make friends, with anyone, that are here. You had like 8 million Taínos. And within like a 10-year span, if not less, there were less than 100,000 left because they were killed. They were raped. They were tortured, by people who wanted their gold and what have you. It was all greed, and yes, people justify Native Americans by calling them savages. Why are they savages? Because they're not wearing a shirt and a tie. Native Americans and Africans were called, and we still are called, savages. So if you're being honest and you want to look at this country, and I have always said that if children of color are old enough to have to deal with racism, then white children are old enough to learn about it. You look at what's going on in Marion High School. A teacher by the name of Sarah Baker. Actually, she is a coach. She is, and she told one of her students that were on track, because the student was running barefoot, that she was a Black African from a third world country. What the hell is that? I mean, come on. So and yes, a Frozen Pizza fan says people use religion too. No, this Marion High School, I do believe it is down south, but she is being, people are protesting, and people are asking her to be terminated. And then you have the history of Black cemeteries. We have graveyards that are in Baltimore and in Staten Island, where purposely the land was stolen from, African Americans, and they built shopping malls, purposely built shopping malls over those grave sites. What the hell is that? Is either African cemeteries or Native American cemeteries where the greed comes in. We want that land. We want that land. And when you look at Native Americans, one reason why Native Americans were being pushed onto reservations was because you had Europeans who wanted that land. We are going to colonize even more. We are going to take it. We want it. We are going to take it. So you go to the reservation. So I am going to open it up. I know I've said some things that some people may agree with, some people may not disagree with, but I truly want to hear what everyone has to say. And the only thing I ask is that people be respectful. We have to maybe agree to disagree. Yes, I am going to use that word or that phrase, but I will open it up. Does anyone want to come on and take the mic? Justina, thank you for sharing the show. And OJ says, sounds so much in common. And OJ, thank you for liking the show. So does anyone want to come on and take the mic? And Frankie, you have put in the chat before that you are at work. So I appreciate the fact that you are even listening to the show. So thank you so much. OJ, you can start us off. What do you have to say?
Yes. Hello, everybody. What I like to say right now is I hope there aren't any Indians, my countrymen in this group, because because things are not too safe to discuss about the politics of a country right now. We have extreme rightist this form of government, and this government is kind of overriding the hundreds of years of history books, which have been which have been taught in the schools over so many years now. But these guys are changing it to their to the to the likes and comforts, and they're removing things fall accordance to their agenda. So yes, and having said that, that is the history part of it. And you look at like you guys are mentioning about Negroes and blacks. I'm sorry to use those words, but then just to prove a point, you guys are talking about the natives and the blacks in states, and here in my country we're talking about the minorities. And to start up with the minorities, the ones top of the list are the Muslims. Second are Christians, and then so on and so forth. And then the Sikhs and the Buddhists and the Jains and all of those. I did mention in one of your sessions sometime back about this guy, a Muslim guy who was shot point blank by the cops because he was walking towards the cops with a stick in his hand, and that's it, a bare body, just a stick in hand. And this guy, this cop shot him in point blank range. And there was this government press photographer who was captured on camera jumping on the dead body. Now this is the state we are in right now. So this government in power is trying their best to rewrite the constitution, overrun the policies, buy over the judges at the Supreme Court and the high courts of the states, and people are threatened, and they feel threatened to even go against the government. That's a reason why I mentioned that whatever you just mentioned at the start of this discussion, that I find a lot of similarities or parallels amongst in between these two huge countries,
You
the
know,
countries per se, but what should be the huge, the two largest democracies in the world right now.
OJ, you bring up a lot of points, because I do know that one thing that India has, that I think that America has. You have the caste system. So uh, in this country, in America, when people say that everyone has an opportunity, yeah, people have opportunities, but are they the same? And the answer is no. And I think people know that. I think people know that, that people don't have the same opportunities as other people. Now, OJ, you alluded and you said that, the police shot a Muslim man point blank because he was approaching them with a stick. And that's where I say, in terms of law enforcement, do you need to shoot him? Can't you tackle him? Can't you tase him? I mean, it's a stick. How much harm is he going to do with a stick? But then we have a young man here by the name of Jamarian Robinson, and police officers were just indicted for killing him. 26-year-old man. Police knocked on his door, and they thought they thought he was the black guy who attacked a police officer. And what they did was they went into his home and they shot him 76 times. 76 times. Now, let's say Jamarian Robinson was the guy who attacked a police officer. Okay. You need to shoot him 76 times? And there were more than 100 bullets in his apartment. And, this is true. OJ is saying, what the F? Yeah, this is true. You can, this is true. And they can't really remember, and really have a count. Was it 60 times? Was it 50 bullets? Was it 70 bullets? Because there were so many bullets in him that ricocheted in his house and throughout his body. They can't get a count. But you have to look at, why are we at the point where this is even happening? And it goes back 400, 500, 600, 700 years in this country. Does anyone else want to take the mic? Frozen Pizza Fan says, do certain types of people become police officers, or does the work change people? I've always wondered about that. I think it's probably a little bit of both. And one thing that I don't like that the officers, the law enforcement here has, is just like this, this course in some, it's almost like you're taking a college course for some states, but in other states, it is longer. But you look at some places, who some police officers don't even carry weapons, and they go through like 2 years of training, before they become officers. So you can say, yes, the United States has a lot of crime. Well, so do a lot of other places. So Frozen Pizza, what do you have to say? You are on, sir.
Hi, Solid Blue Sister, and everybody else. No, I agree, and I took a criminology like 101 class, and there's a like crazy statistic about cops who go to college and the ones who don't, and the ones who don't go to college are far more likely to even pull their gun out during stops. So, but I want to get into the school board meetings and CRT and even masks. And when OJ was talking, it made me think about, and I don't want to sound like this because I'm a kid, but you know how people always say, oh, when I was a kid, people treated others with respect, or there's no respect anymore. But I wonder if Facebook and YouTube have contributed to like this ego of, the parents at school board meetings who are going to go there and scream and threaten other parents. And I'm like, why do adults get to behave like this? And then it comes to like an entitlement thing. So that's one part, is just like, I think, and then hearing OJ, I'm like, I think it's a problem with America where it's like, patriots, like they call themselves the patriots, but they're beating the crap out of the cops and saying, hang the vice president. You're not a patriot. You can't call yourself one if you're doing that stuff. Anyway, but this like American exceptionalism, and I think it has to do with like our decline, and we want to like preserve our righteousness in the world, and how we go into, quote unquote third world countries and, promise them democracy. And I agree, like I want America to be involved, but it's just insane that we have adults who know they are on camera who are acting like unhinged. And I want to know, where does that come from? Because I don't know. I've seen adults like, I've seen my parents ask for a manager and like, complain about things, right? And it's just, it doesn't seem like, it kind of seems like we're the underdeveloped country with how we're acting. I mean, there's nothing authoritarian about wearing a mask in schools to protect the teachers and their families. And it's just something you have to do. I mean, there's nothing like unconstitutional about it. Like, that's the crazy part, is like some of these right wingers are saying they're constitutionalists because, and they're not, they're just lying. And I want to know, why do you guys think that it's okay to just lie to yourselves? And then also to answer the question about can kids handle it? Yes, I definitely think, especially when it comes to race. But I was in an English class last year, and I voiced my concern to the teacher that I don't, I actually had a problem because she was like saying how LGBTQ stuff should be taught in schools. And she also talked about the history of African Americans. And then when she talked about Muslim Americans, she used an essay about how in video games they write Arabic backwards, or in one of the Call of Duty video games, there was a picture of Allah in the bathroom, and that was disrespectful. But I'm like, I'm like, that's kind of, I don't know. I had a problem with the LGBTQ stuff because I'm like, there's no way fifth graders are going to be able to take that kind of topic seriously, I believe. And then when she kind of pressed me, I'm like, because she was like, there have been books written about it for elementary schools. I'm like, I guess I'm not mature enough. It's just hard to have certain types of conversations. But race, I think kids are mature enough to handle. And
Oh,
yeah, I'll share the mic. But I mean, one of my favorite teachers was my seventh grade history teacher, Mrs. Gordon, who I did the Constitution test with, and I still remember her. So this education system is scary, and I think more people need to stand up.
Okay, let me answer GP Man real quick. The topic today is school curriculum. Are children smart enough to handle the truth? And then, even when I say the truth, I'm talking about, the things that have been, brushed under the rug. I think is absolutely ridiculous that you have places like Tulsa, on for Black Americans, white Americans, for Asian Americans. I mean, for a lot of people that they didn't know about Tulsa. And then again, maybe it's because I grew up in a household where Black history was taught. I mean, my mother was a teacher, and she consistently um, told us, that don't let anyone make you feel less than what you are. You're just as good as someone else. You know, um, what was that saying? Back in the 70s. Say it loud. I'm Black and I'm proud. That's what I grew up with. My mother, and father, but mainly my mother. She marched with Jesse Jackson when it was Operation bread basket before it became the Rainbow Coalition. You know, uh, my family supported the Black Panthers. And when you look at the Black Panthers, you have a lot of white people who say, "Oh my God, they were this militant group and they carried guns." What's the difference between what they did back in the 70s and what you have some of these other places like the Proud Boys and the 3%ers or 2%ers or whatever the hell they are, carrying guns now. So I think that this history, in America, and OJ, you made a point where you said, America, where is this? What you said? I'm going through the chat here, right here. America isn't the world police. No, we aren't. We are not the world police, but we act as if we do. How can we tell another country, you all need to be democratic, you need democracy, but it's not happening here? So when you're teaching things in school, children are not stupid. When that child comes home from school, or when the babysitter left and they say, that person touched me or that person did this, and children, I know I'm getting off topic a little bit. I'm just trying to make a point here. And parents may say, oh, father so and so would never do that, or your teacher would never do that. Children, they understand what is going on. They understand more than we do. So when those parents go to those school board meetings and start to threaten people, and it's gotten to the point where a lot of school board members are coming to these meetings with bodyguards. When we were in school, we didn't have school board. It was a school board meeting. It was boring. You went, you listened to the budget, things like that. School board presidents and what have you did not have to come with security. People who are going to vote, they don't have to, the people who are counting the ballots or whatever, they don't have to, before they did not have to show up with bodyguards and they're being threatened. And no matter what someone may think about Dr. Fauci, his family should not be threatened. He should not have bodyguards. His children should not have to have bodyguards. His grandchildren should not have to have bodyguards. No one who has a job, basically should have to have a bodyguard. I mean, it's just gotten so out of hand. So when we're talking about what children are learning in school, give them some credit. They can handle it. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to give the mic to someone else. Does someone else want to say something? Because I am getting these comments in here. See, welcome GP Man. Justina, would you like to say something? This WAP doesn't lie. If you want to say something, Crucible Man, is he here? Let's see. Okay. And again, for everyone else who has just come on, again, I say, we may agree to disagree, but just keep it respectful. All right. So welcome, sir.
How are you?
I am good.
I have a story to tell you since you mentioned the Black Panthers.
Okay.
I grew up, I'm 67 years old. I grew up East 125th Street, and I was friends with Sonny Barnett. He was in the Panthers, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. I was around 9 years old, 10 years old, and he took me down into the basement of the Apollo Theater, and they ran a Super 8 movie, and it was a van, a white van, and it pulled up in Harlem, and these three guys got out the van and left the van there, and all of a sudden, two or three black gentlemen came over and opened the doors to the van, and the police, there was guns in the van, and the police shot them dead. And I was the only white kid in the basement watching this Super 8. And the Daily News turned to me and said to me, "What do you think about what just happened?" And I said, "The police just murdered those black men." And the Daily News reporter turned to me. He said, "You mean the colored people?" I said, "No, my crayons at home are colored. These people are black." And I'll never forget that. It stuck in my mind how the police ambushed them and set them up. It was unbelievable. And I wound up going into the Black Panthers on a weekly basis. I became friends with them. And I'll never forget the second most thing that stuck in my mind was I met Malcolm X before he died, got murdered. And we were on the sidewalk hanging out on a block, and with Sonny Barnett. Malcolm X came walking by, shook Sonny's hand, and turned to this black lady and said to her, "Why do you have your hair like you do?" And this particular black lady had her hair straightened. And he said, "Are you ashamed of your heritage?" And I never forget him. He was so well spoken. And the lady said, "You're Malcolm X, you're Malcolm X." She said, "No, I just like it like this. I wanted to try something new." And he told her as she was walking away, "Never forget where you came from." I just wanted to run that by you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, you mentioned that that you met Malcolm X, and when I was 6, my sister was 8. We grew up in Chicago, and they were dedicating a park near our house, Nat King Cole Park. It is still there today, and I had the opportunity to meet Martin Luther King, and you know, you see these people and you hear about them and you read about them in the news, but when people say, especially to African Americans, Black people, people of African heritage or descent, and I keep bringing up Native Americans because I think that they've just been shafted in so many different ways. You know, don't tell me to look forward. Don't tell me not to bring up the past while somebody's waving a Confederate flag. Isn't that the past? When you want to go back to yesteryear, make America great, great again. Yes, I am going to use that phrase because I'm making a point. It was great for who? I mean, when you look at every decade in this country, not century, but every decade in this country, who was it great for? It was mainly great for one particular race of people. But for the majority of people of color, and when I say people of color, I'm not just talking about African Americans, I'm talking about people of color. Who is it great for? I mean, really, do I want to go back to, my people cleaning somebody's toilets? Picking somebody's cotton? Watching somebody's kids? Nursing someone else's baby off of our breast? Really? Do I want to go back to that? So when you look at what's being, I'm going circling back to what's taught in school. Let's teach everything, because those students who are sitting in that classroom are not just white. They're not just black. They're not just Native American. They're not just Asian. They're not just Indian. They are we America has some of everybody. We are a melting pot. We speak hundreds of languages in this country. So we need to talk about everybody. We need to acknowledge things, the good and the bad. You cannot tell a teacher, as one school board member or one school board president told their teachers, when you teach the Holocaust, teach the good things about the Holocaust. And the teachers are coming back and says, well, how do you teach what's good about the Holocaust? What was good about the Holocaust? I mean, this is ridiculous. Why are you so afraid to bring up negative things? It's part of this country. It's negative. If your family owned slaves, they own slaves. My family, we were slaves. My great grandfather, my three times grandfather was white. He didn't marry my three times great grandmother. He raped her. you know, my great grandmother was half white. So, this is who we are. This is our history. So, on that note, does anyone else? Crucible Man, you have been waiting. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was prepared to talk about school curriculum, but it seems like we've devolved into a grievance conversation here, and I don't have a whole lot to offer in that area.
Well, but we are talking about, schools and what have you. So if you want to, take it back to schools, when I brought up this topic, I knew that it was going to evolve into other things. And I don't think that, when you say grievance, I don't think that it is. And I think it's a little bit on the insulting side, because to me, it's just dismissing what other people, or put like this, I'm just speaking for myself. What people like me feel, whatever, and what it is. But I knew when this topic was going to come up, I knew that it was going to evolve into something else. But critical race theory or the curriculum in school is still very much the topic. And my show, we talk about different stuff. So if you want to talk about school curriculum or critical race theory, be my guest. I am giving you the mic.
Yeah, I think there's the curriculum thing. Kids are graduating today. History is such a small piece of the curriculum pie. And students are graduating today. I'm not a parent. I just know what I read and that I see on TV, and I look at statistics and data and things. And children are graduating today in such spectacular ignorance about such basic things like reading comprehension and math. I have no problem with teaching the whole history. You teach about the Native Americans, teach about slavery, teach everything that's honest. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But kids are failing at such prolific rates these days when they get out of school. They need to be taught critical thinking skills, not critical race theory. They need to be taught how to think, not what to think. And we have a terrible school system here in Chicago. And I just happened to read something online a few days ago that would never appear in the papers here in Chicago or anyplace else. But in 2019, the 11th graders, now these are juniors in high school, had a proficiency rate in math and reading of 11%. Do you know how many of them graduated that year? 86%. How do you square that circle? So if I'm going to talk about curriculum, history is certainly one part of it, but we're graduating kids who don't have any personal finance skills. They don't have any critical thinking skills. They don't have any skills about logic, deduction, reasoning. There's so many things that aren't being taught in school that need to be taught to prepare kids to be functioning, thriving adults, and it doesn't seem to happen. And I don't know why more people aren't upset about that. I understand being upset about the way history is taught and whatnot, but history shouldn't be taught to pit groups against each other. It should be taught to teach accuracy and factual historical reality. But in doing so, if we're pitting pitting groups of people against each other, I'm not sure we're going forward, and maybe we're going backward, or at a minimum, we're going sideways. So I think the curriculum thing is so much broader than just history.
You know what? And you are right. But I am going to ask you this: who's pitting anybody against each other? I mean, who is doing that?
Well, I'm not intimately familiar with critical race theory, but from what I understand at a very high level, part of teaching critical race theory is discrediting and dismissing white people and blaming white people for all the problems in the world. I don't know how that's a healthy conversation. If
Well,
it's
first
part
of
of
all,
if it's part of history, absolutely say it. White people own a lot of bad stuff in our history. That's just a fact. Slavery being at the very, very top of the list. I tell you, when I'm a very big history buff, and anytime I read anything about slavery, I get angry and I get incredibly sad. So I'm not dismissing the role that white people have played in a lot of horrific things that have happened in this country. I'm not trying to deny it, sweep it under the rug, minimize it, or anything. We got to own it, and we got to own it big. But it's just one piece of what kids should be taught. There are so many skills that they are lacking in, and nobody ever says a word. Nobody seems upset about it at all. You would think an 11% proficiency rating for 11th graders in math and reading, kind of important subjects, yet 86% of them graduated, and there was not a single word about that in any Chicago newspaper. That, to me, is scandalous.
and you have brought up several points, okay? And I am going to let some other people talk, but I am going to say this: the education system in America, not just Chicago. I grew up there. I did not go to public school. I went to private school. I never had to worry about having, being involved in a bad school or a school that was not, up to par. Okay. But the educational system across the board, in my opinion, in America sucks. And I do believe that, also, I want to say welcome, Woody Bush, Juju, and Doss. I would like to say that people were talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. But then all of a sudden, in the last, 4 years, race has become in the forefront because of what is going on in America. So when you use the term reality, teach reality, you also have to remember what is the reality for some people. What may be the reality for some people may not be the reality for others. There are some things that people that an Asian person will experience that me as an African American woman, I will never experience because I'm not Asian. There are things that Native Americans will experience that I will never experience because I'm not Native American. But on the other hand, there are things that I experience that other people may not because you aren't Black. So you don't dismiss and say we're talking about history, whatever. I think one reason why it's coming up is because of everything that's been going on in this country for the last 4.5 years. I think that's why. I think because now a lot of the monsters have come out of the closet and they're in your face, and all of this stuff is happening, and a lot of it involves race. So I think that's one reason why, quote unquote, critical race theory is out, and it's not out to pit people. And this is another thing. Depending upon where people get their news and what have you, critical race theory is not out to pit one person and say, oh, white people, you're horrible, and you should feel guilty. That's not what it is. And like I've said before, I don't even like the term critical race theory. It should just be history. We are learning about history. That is what it should be. So I don't think that anybody's dismissing reading, writing, and arithmetic, because people were talking about it. People were talking about it, but then all of a sudden, the world just erupted. America just erupted into this race stuff, and that got pushed to the forefront. So I don't think people are dismissing the the main things, that the 3 A's or whatever, but racist has come up. Does anybody else want to say anything? Okay. America hasn't always been nice to white people either. No, a frozen pizza man, you are absolutely right. It hasn't. It hasn't. So you are right. Before I go back to circle around to the people who have previously talked, because we have more people here. Petty Deb, Mr. A, do you want to say anything? Let's see, who am I missing here? Juju, I know you're listening. EBHJ, do you want to say anything? And Frankie, I know you always indicate that you are at work. So, does anyone want to say anything? And Frankie, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Frozen
I
Pizza.
agree with Crucible Man that, well, when I think about critical race theory, I don't think about the white people being bad guys. Because in my mind, during the civil rights era in the 60s, I feel like people of color needed that quote unquote old white person to help pass legislation. But I also agree with Solid Blue, because you just have to be honest about how people were treated. And you can't say that, people come to America and we're a big melting pot and everyone's accepted. No, I mean, one of the things that really makes me upset is when people say like, oh, speak English if you're in America. And that bothers me. But I also wanted to say to Crucible that my reading and comprehension skills got so much better in college. And I think that the rise of social media and just influencers and being able to monetize like stupid videos on YouTube, whether it's like pranks or something, but I think people just don't care about school. I was in another class in college where a person said to the teacher, it doesn't make sense to go to school. And the teacher had to be like, on the second day of class, was like, no, it's a fact that if you graduate with a degree, you're going to make more money. But there's a lot of like get rich quick guys. I can't think of the guy's name, but I think his first name is Neil or something. He's pretty popular, especially on Facebook. But they all say like, oh, going to college, buying a house is a total waste of money. And I think there's like, I kind of want to get back to the curriculum in critical race theory, but there's like this mindset of like there's a big conspiracy, or like someone's trying to get the better of you when it comes to like college. I don't know, but I've taken some immigration classes and I'm a political science major, and I go to school in a red state. We really don't learn about critical race theory. And even when we go over things about like the Iraq war, I read the Bush Doctrine, and there's like definitely we get the full picture. And to wrap up my point, I just think that guys, or just speaking for myself, mature later in life. And I didn't take school seriously until I was in my 20s, until I was like in college. And I think that just plays a role. But I agree that we need to take school more seriously to be a better country.
Okay. Frozen Pizza Man has brought up some points. All right, so Petty Deb, I am going to invite you on because it seems like that you do want to say something. So please take the mic. I just ask that everyone again keep it civil. Let's see. So, okay, Petty Deb, are you coming on? It says you are, but I don't see you. Okay, maybe not. All right, so I will circle back around. Let's see. OJ, did you want to make a comment? And then I will go to Crucible Man to see if he wants to make another comment. OJ, you have the mic. Okay, maybe not. Crucible Man, you have the mic.
Yeah, one of the things we haven't really talked about, and I'm kind of curious as to what the group thinks, kind of relative to the whole Loudoun County thing in Virginia with the school board and everything. I think that's a very tiny example that's been blown out of proportion. And Virginia, by the way, is a very, very blue state. So these are not right-wing parents that are just going off. These are all Democrats. But I'm curious, what do people think about parents' role in shaping curriculum? And I'm not saying that they should be involved in a granular level where they're saying, well, I think Algebra 2 should be taught in sophomore year instead of freshman year. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about some kind of input. I mean, if you're going to a private school, you're paying buku dollars to send your kids there. If you're going to a public school, you're paying through your taxes. So parents are paying to send their children to school, but to have people and politicians say that they should have no role in what their children are learning. I'm not a parent. I've never had children, so I'm a bit out of school, no pun intended, on this topic, but it seems you don't need to have kids to employ some common sense. And why wouldn't you, as a parent, have at least some transparency? And this all bubbled up as a result of COVID, and all this remote learning was taking place, and these parents were listening in on these classes, on these Zoom classes, and they were appalled to learn what was being taught. So again, I asked the group, should parents not have some role in at least weighing in on what their kids do and don't learn?
All right. I'm going to take that one, and then I'll open it up to the group. Yes, I absolutely do believe that parents should take a role in what is being learned. And in terms of Virginia being a blue state, it actually are a lot of people who are disrupting the school board meetings there are actually right wingers, and it's not just a small group of people. This is going on across the country. This is going on across the country in terms of school boards being disruptive. Now, in terms of, and I'll let you come back and I will let you rebut that, Crucible Man. In terms of, parents being appalled, I don't think parents were appalled at what their children were learning. Parents, wanted their children, to learn. It's not like, the teachers changed the curriculum from when they were on Zoom to when they were in the classroom. Okay. My son was homeschooled from 5th grade through 12th grade. Me personally, I don't understand why it was so hard for children to do remote learning. For me, as a homeschool parent, and millions of children are homeschooled every single year, I don't understand why it was so hard. But then again, I don't know what was going on unless I know there was issues with internet, people not having computers. I can understand that. But I don't think that teachers intentionally said, well, we're going to go out of the classroom now and I'm going to be on Zoom, so I'm going to start teaching this. I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened at all. But that's my opinion. And I think that people, that there are some news outlets that report things that just blatantly are not true. You have news outlets where you have, one particular person telling parents, if you see a child with a mask on, report that parent for child abuse. Really? COVID made a lot of things political. COVID made a lot of things political that should not have been political. And the curriculum was one of them. Parents have always been involved in their children's schooling if they wanted to. And what I mean by that is, I think that this remote learning has become so political that people are thinking that parents were never involved. Yes, they were. Were you the type of parent who went up to school to see what was going on with your child? Did you attend parent night? Did you go to school board meetings that happened pre-COVID? Were you one of those parents who showed up and took an interest in your child? I did. Even when my son was in regular school, I was up at the school all the time. I was a parent, and they were like, "Oh my God, she's coming again." Yes, I was that parent. My parents were that parent, and as a homeschool parent, I was one of those people who were constantly, talking to the teacher, about what my child's learning and what have you. So it's not that parents were never involved or never had the opportunity. The question is, did they? So I say to you as a parent, and even people who you may not have children, but even your own parents, did your parents take an interest when you were in school? School board meetings have always been happening. But now all of a sudden things have become so political. Everybody's showing up. Everybody's talking about critical race theory and this and this and this and this isn't being taught and this isn't being taught. Sure, it was, but now there's a spotlight. Anybody want to go on? Anybody? Okay, let's see.
Wait,
Hold on, Frozen Peace. I just want to just go around. I'm trying to get people who haven't had the mic. Mr. A, do you want to say anything? I'm trying to be fair here and give it to people who haven't had a chance. So does anyone who has not spoken want to say anything? You all want to rebut me, rebut Crucible Man, rebut Frozen Pizza, OJ, anybody? Petty Deb. Okay. OJ is asking about no ma'am. Thank you though. All right. Thank you. I'm just trying to be fair. I don't want you guys to think that it's always the same people talking. But everyone has the opportunity. I just want you guys to know that. Okay. Frozen Pizza. What were you going to say? And then I'll circle around the Crucible, Matt.
I agree with Crucible that there's definitely some teachers that are eccentric and have a weird way of teaching, and it might not be what parents think will be a good way for kids to learn the material. And then to answer Solid Blue, my parents were involved, but I don't really want them really structuring the curriculum. And they are smart people. I never had a problem with what I learned in schools. I've always been under the impression that middle school and even early high school, you're really just taught. Well, it could be a debate what you're taught about, but it's kind of just like how to act in a classroom, what to ask, how to prepare for tests, the basic stuff to get you ready for college. And then I also wanted to say to Crucible that I think it's important. Like, I don't want to sound like I might not be completely right, but the social media algorithms kind of make you see what you like. They force you to see certain things. And during Zoom classes, I got a ton of videos of students being a lot more like prankstery. They would talk back to the teacher because they felt more secure behind their screen in the comfort of their home. And there were these things called Zoom raids where social media stars would hack onto a classroom and just troll the class and really derail the class period, which is a big deal. But I just think that the Zoom classes were kind of stressful for probably the teachers as well, because for me, just being in my apartment, and I have a nice desk too, it's just weird being in your apartment and then doing your homework in your apartment and not really walking to class. But I think that's a first world problem. But I definitely noticed a change in the way classes were taught. There's a lot more leniency in Zoom classes, but at the younger ages on Twitter, I would just see a lot of goofing around, way more goofing around than you'd probably see in a normal class.
Okay, so frozen pizza. I'm going to come back to just my own particular experience being a homeschool parent. Like I said, my son was in regular school from preschool to fourth grade, and then fifth grade through 12th grade he was homeschooled. We did not use Zoom. We used a completely different platform, and it was secure. So I think that's one of the first things that could have been one of the issues, was because Zoom, it, it can be hacked. I mean, it can be. And I think that when everything was closing down and what have you, people were scrambling, trying to figure out, how we're going to get these kids, back in school and learning and what have you. And I think that that was one of the issues. But I do know, like you also said, frozen pizza, was the fact that um, children who were on Zoom, and who were not used to remote learning, they did take the opportunity to act out. And teachers, when you become a teacher on a homeschool platform, there are classes that you have to take. There are things that they have to go through, because they tell teachers that this is not like teaching in a brick and mortar classroom. You're teaching online. You know, all of 2020, when my son had to pack up and leave the dorms and come home, and that whole year that he was doing remote learning, he didn't have a problem. He was on Zoom. Maybe it's because he did do 12 years, or he had, 8 years of homeschool. But I don't think that teachers purposely set out to teach kids something that was appalling. I'll put it like that. And with that note, I will circle back around the Crucible Man. You have the mic.
Yeah, I guess, the word appalling, I've read several articles and several things about, maybe appalling is a little strong, but Zoom is not the culprit here. We're getting too hung up on Zoom. Zoom is the portal through which parents finally had some transparency. I'm not saying teachers changed their curriculum because they were on Zoom. It was the first time parents had a peek behind the curtain to see what was going on, and they didn't like it. Now, throughout history, teachers have always been insistent that parents be involved in their children's schooling, except when they don't want them to be. So, which would be in the curriculum area. I don't know how teachers feel about it, but I do know the former governor of Virginia, at a debate a couple weeks ago, stood on stage and said parents should have no role in their children's curriculum, which I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. But children are our most precious commodity on this planet, period. We don't seem to prioritize their needs, their real material, real world needs, the way they need to be. And the blocking and tackling of how we learned when we were in school 40 years ago, or some of us who are a little older, that hasn't changed. Those skills are still important, but they seem to have been subverted by other agendas that are not serving our children well. And if teachers want parents involved in their children's schooling, they should let them be involved. They shouldn't draw lines and say, well, you can be involved up to here, and then after that, we're going to take it over. We'll be your kids' parents. We'll be the ones to decide what they're going to learn and not learn. I find that to be just disgraceful.
And I am going to say that I think that when, you have to be, again, I bring up this word fair, because when people have their own agenda, and I'm getting the impression, and I could be wrong, and you can correct me, that it is a liberal agenda. There are agendas on both sides. There are definitely agendas on both sides. And when you look at critical race theory, and when you look at some of these school board meetings, I mean, I have listened to so many school board meetings across the country. And when I say so many, I mean so many. And, it is appalling. And I am going to use that word. It is appalling the way the parents go in there on either side and hijack the meeting. And a lot of them now are turning violent, where people are being attacked. And talking about the children is not an issue. And yes, we do need to prioritize our children. But I am going to say again that one reason why I believe is that the whole thing about reading, writing, and arithmetic. Thank you, Doron. Thank you. You know, one reason why reading, writing, and arithmetic is not taught as much, or I'm not even going to say not taught as much, not talked about as much, is because you have to admit that in the last 4 years, our country, the world, has taken a turn, and race has been pushed to the forefront. You can either deny that, you can agree with me, but that is what people are dealing with. You know, children are going to school. You had a kid who put an ad on Craigslist selling another Black student as a slave. This was a student. So all of a sudden, you're not supposed to talk about that? Yes, we do need, yes, America has fallen behind so much in terms of science and math and reading and what have you. Yes, we have. But at the same time, there's another component. And parents need to be involved with their children to make sure that they are learning everything. That's my opinion. And I come back to say that parents have the right to be involved in their children's curriculum and what is going on at school. They've always had that opportunity. Some teachers may not like it, but if you're a parent like me, I'm in your face. I want to know what is going on. And parents and teachers cannot deny a parent from wanting to be involved. Even if you're a helicopter parent, a teacher cannot deny you. They can try, but they can't do it. So I don't know. I'm just I'm someone that was extremely involved in my son's school. And I had parents who were extremely involved with me to the point where it was embarrassing, but teachers have and parents have always had the opportunity to step into the classroom and see what is going on. They have the right to come into that classroom and sit at a desk and listen. They've always had that opportunity. So it's not like this is something new. Parents have always had the opportunity to go into that classroom and sit and listen to see what was going on. And when your child comes home from school and they're doing their homework, how many parents are actually looking to see what their children were doing for homework? Did you look at your children's school books? Because I looked at my son's. I wanted to see what he was doing. Who was publishing the books? My parents did the same thing. So parents have always had the opportunity to go into that classroom and sit and listen. As a homeschool parent, I had the opportunity to sign in and sit and listen to that teacher's class and what that teacher was teaching. I had that opportunity. The thing is, are parents taking it? And if a teacher tries to push back, a parent can push back further, but not to the point where you're threatening and beating up people. Does anyone want to make a comment? I'm going to go back to Crucible Man because I was actually responding to him. So Crucible Man, you have the mic.
Yeah, I agree that we need to prioritize math and science and some of those other subjects. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't teach certain things or omit certain things. Everything should be taught, but we for some reason education it should be at the top of the list of priorities in this country, and our schools are failing, particularly if we want to focus on race for a minute, particularly in the minority communities. They're failing at spectacular rates. They're closing schools on a regular basis, and nobody seems outraged by that. I'm just absolutely baffled by why this is not a national scandal. When you look at the graduation rates, you look at college dropout rates. In particular, in African American colleges, the dropout rate by sophomore year is 50%. And that is an absolute indictment of what they learned in high school. I just don't understand why more people aren't exercised by something like this. I don't even have kids, and it annoys the hell out of me. I just don't understand why it hasn't been more of an issue in this country.
I think that it is an issue, and first of all, for minority communities, the schools have always been less than compared to other schools, and a lot of that has to do with economics, what have you. But I think people are appalled. In fact, I know people are. I know people here in California, especially in Los Angeles, who, I think has one of the. I don't live in Los Angeles. I live about 30 or 40 miles away from LA, but I have friends that live there. I have friends that live in South LA. I have friends that live in East LA. I have friends that live in Beverly Hills and what have you. And the schools are wanting. The schools are less than they're not up to par, especially in minority areas. But it's always been like that for us. We had to go to court just to go to school with white folks. And even then, when it was segregation, it was like the schools were still really less than. So I think people are outraged. Maybe they're not as outraged as you may want it to be, but they are outraged. Welcome, Crazy Lady, and welcome, Jack. And neurons to Nirvana. No worries. I always just want to extend the invitation if somebody wants to talk. So not a problem. But and it is wrong. But then this is again where when you look at things, like education and what's being taught in school, a lot of it has to do with demographics and where you are. So you're either privileged or you're not. That's just the way it is. But I do believe, coming back to my original question, are children smart enough to handle the truth? I believe they are. I don't know. We have gone over, and I don't even know if we've even touched on anything. I think we have people. Is obvious that people in this group, have varying opinions on what should be taught in school and what curriculum should and should not be. Should reading, writing, and arithmetic. Should that be more important than history? I think it's all important. But when you have a child that is sitting in a classroom who is of a different race, and the curriculum is one-sided and it doesn't include them, I think it's kind of hard. I think it's kind of hard that when that teacher says, okay, we're all going to learn about our family tree. We're going to trace our family tree. There are kids sitting in that classroom who can't trace their family tree. Why? Why can't they trace their family tree? Because a lot of their family, was sold here, sold there, sold there, sold there. They don't even, they don't even know. You have a lot of African Americans who can't go past who their grandparents were. And I think that is sad. They can't even go past who their grandparents were. For me to trace my entire family tree on my mother's side, I'm sorry, on my father's mother's side, I had to go to ancestry.com. And it took me about 4 years to do it. And I'm still tracing, my family tree, for the rest of my family, whatever. But a lot of people, they can not do that. A lot of people, you know, they don't have that opportunity. So history is important. Okay, Jack, you came in, so I'm assuming that was just an accident. So yeah. I had a call in from who wanted to speak. Somebody wanted to speak, and I was running my mouth. Who wanted to talk? Okay, I think maybe they dropped off. Okay. So anyway, does anybody want to say anything else before we wrapped up? Because we have gone past the hour. And let's see. Okay, and the crazy lady says, up until recently, I was clueless on my mother's side. Juju says, you're 100% right. I think they use McGraw-Hill as an example. McGraw-Hill has been one of the foremost people in textbooks. And crazy lady, you also make a point. Or if you are adopted, and that's why in previous shows I've said, if you are adopted, white, black, Asian, Native American, whatever, you need to know your history. Who else? I haven't heard anything like Texas setting the standards. History is important, culture, and everyone's. Okay, so OJ, I'm going to come back to you. You haven't been able to say what you wanted to say. OJ, you there?
Yep.
Okay, did you want to make a parting comment?
No, what the common point which I shared, which we shared amongst the two countries, I said, but then the rest of the stuff is kind of, it's more American centric. So I don't think I'll do justice by commenting on that, since I'm not well read or well versed with what is happening currently in the states.
Okay, all right. I will go circle back around too. Before I circle around to people who have already spoken, does anybody else want to jump on? Because we are going to be wrapping this up pretty soon. Crucible Man, did you want to say something else, a parting comment?
No, I'm just repeating myself. I just think that education, as I've said a few times already, so I'm beating a dead horse here. Just it needs to be prioritized, because you can't get back those learning years. And I didn't take school, to Frozen Pizza's comment, I didn't take it all that seriously either. In high school, I took it very seriously, but in college, I didn't take it seriously at all. But you don't get those years back, those formative years when your brain is absorbing and forming its developmental abilities. I just think for something as important as education in this country, we seem to talk about everything but education. We talk around education. We talk about the politics of education, but we never talk about, are our kids learning anything? Are we preparing them to be productive, functional, thriving adults? And I would say the answer so far is the jury is definitely out.
And I would say, when you say we talk about the politics of education, I agree with you. And I agree. And I say it's on both sides. And once again, I am going to stress this. There are assholes on both sides. And if people, don't want to admit that or acknowledge that, I don't know, maybe they're the assholes. But there are assholes on both sides. There are problems on both sides, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, left, right, or if you're in the middle, whatever, or if you are someone who believes in some of that crap that's going around with outer space. if you're on the moon, there are assholes everywhere. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone does. So again, I've seen a lot of school board meetings, and they have turned into, what is it? The OK Corral, not, with guns and what have you, but it's just gotten ridiculous, out of hands, where they're literally fighting, and the kids are not being brought up at all. It's all about the parents, and again, that's on both sides. And that's something that needs to be recognized also. But guys, this has been, I'll say, an emotional show. There are opinions on this show. I know that I have them, but I can only look back at what I've experienced, what I know that some of my family members have experienced. And I don't want my history to be erased. I don't want someone to tell me, stop looking at the past, because my past is where my people come from. My past may make you uncomfortable, but it's my past, and I don't want somebody telling me to not to look at it. So on that note, does one more time, as we're at 21 minutes over, does anyone else have anything that they would like to add or say, or anything? I'm giving someone the mic if they want to make one last comment. And Frankie, thank you again for liking the show and for your pod beans. I really appreciate those. And Neurons to Nirvana, thank you for those pod beans. Very much appreciated. All right, everyone. So that's it. I'm wrapping it up. And I'm going to say again, speak your truth. I am Solid Blue Sister. This is my turn to talk. And I will see you on Monday. No shows on Friday. Bye, y'all. Let's see. Let's go through some of these comments. And Crazy Lady, yes, the USA is way behind. And Juju says it's really been an emotional show for me too. Thank you, Solid Blue Sister, and everyone for your input. Yes, thank everyone for your input. I always thank everyone. I appreciate the fact that you all even take the time to show up. So, that alone. And OJ, again, you're on the other side of the world, dude. And it's after 2:00 in the morning there? It's like almost 2:30 in the morning. So thank you for hanging in there. I really, really appreciate that. But guys, this show, whether we agree or not, whether you agree with me or you think I'm blowing smoke up my ass, this show does not work without you. It does not work. It does not work without all of you. So, thank you. Petty Dab, I hope next time you are able to join in. I'm assuming you were having some issues with your mic, but not sure. I'm just assuming there. But I want everyone to have an opportunity to say something. I don't want to talk at you. I want to talk with you and have a discussion. And Juju, I hope you're enjoying your pool time. Because that is a nice pool. I know you love that pool. Okay, y'all. Have a good weekend. And we will talk on Monday. Bye.